So talk a little bit about, the genesis of the show, how it changed over the season, and kind of what you're looking forward to in the new season.
Well, for the genesis of the show,
I was driving along one day. I literally was driving along one day, and I was listening to this radio show at like 2 a.m. about the MK Ultra program, which the government actually had, where they were, trying to identify whether people could have remote viewing and ESP and this sort of thing. It was something done by the this idea popped in my head: what if that had really happened? And what if they had actually, discovered people with amazing abilities? And I walked into my friend Zach Penn's office the next day and was like, what about this idea? And he had done X-Men 2 and 3, written those. And so we were off to the races. And, 5 years later, here we are.
When you're putting together an ensemble of characters like this, where do you come up with powers? Is it a matter of what complements the others the best, or a matter of dramatic storytelling, or what's the angle?
Well,
you go.
Well, I think it's kind of a combination of a few things. I think you want to. I know that the world that Michael and Zach created was very much a world that came from real neurology and real brain science. So you try to pick different areas of brain science to focus on. And I think that, especially with our actors, but with our group of writers as well, they dig so deeply into any ability that you can find character stuff to play with it. And all of our actors play, for example, Rachel is her character is very, very sensitive, and that can promote someone who either withdraws from the world or embraces the world. And so all of a sudden you have someone who's a fascinating character that we can all relate to, and it isn't just the ability is just an accentuated version of that, because everybody's sensitive about something. Look at his hair.
I have amazing hair.
But when we were coming up with the abilities, part of it was, part of the concept of the show was what would really happen. So we don't have people who can fly or travel through time and all of that. So we tried to always find some kind of reasonable explanation for how someone could have an ability like this. Preferably some scientific explanation.
Real life plus, just a little.
Yeah.
A lot of times we start. Sometimes we start from character and we think what ability would be most illustrative of that person's character. You'll see this new character this season, Cornell Scipio, and his ability is quite specific to his personality. Other times we start with the ability and we think, if you had this ability, how would your personality be affected? Which, with C. Thomas Howell's character in episode 2, you'll see he has a very specific ability that has shaped his whole persona. It's almost, in his case, like a birth defect.
Yeah, he lives life very quickly.
Unfortunately, defined him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
we
okay.
could actually
You can
spoil
tell.
things. Okay, he lives life very quickly, and therefore he's very impatient. He's a very impatient man.
Yeah.
But those would be natural attributes then, because of their abilities, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Well, that was the thing. I think the thing Michael said is very important, is that it's all about what really would happen.
Yeah.
So if someone was born like this, if someone had this, what would their life be like day to day? So that all of a sudden, because I think as a show primarily about being special and being weird and being not feeling like you're everybody else, what does that do to you on every different level? Does it screw you up? Azita, if you look at Azita, you would assume that she had quite, any boy she wanted to date. But she's had a lot of trouble in her love life because she's so sensitive and keep people's at arm's distance.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it universal to the audience, hopefully, is that we all have our quirks, and that those quirks can both be strengths, things that we've really learned to lean on in our lives, but they can also be detriments, and I think that's true for everyone. And look, we're all, the three of us are all writers. That brings with it a whole suite of benefits. We're incredibly thoughtful, and we're also all a bunch of neurotic messes, and that's
we think about everything too much.
Yeah, exactly. I spend all my time thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen right now?
Well, from a writer standpoint too, since you guys are writers but producers as well, how is it easier or is it difficult when you go from one program to another, going from Eureka over here, going from all past projects, like, is it a challenge sometimes to come into a new universe, to come into a new style, or is that kind of the fun part of doing it?
Well, it's both the challenge and the fun part, especially to come into a show that, in this case, had such a strong foundation, such a strong point of view, a voice. It didn't feel like any other show, and I came from a show that was much more whimsical and kind of quirky, but you find that every show has quirks of its own. But it was really I was a huge fan of the show, so it was one of my favorite things about it to come in and to kind of but I think that, you know, Michael and Zach at the beginning of the season, when we were first starting to talk about the show, you learned very quickly that it was all about the characters in the real world, and that's what every show really is about. So that since that part doesn't change, you're just saying, okay, well, let's, you know, before we had this group of people in this little town full of geniuses, now we have this group of people in New York who live their normal lives, and you just put them there as well. And it's the original genesis of it that I think allows you to latch onto it and build from it, not, you know, me coming to it, I'm kind of jumping into a boat that's already in a river.
Excellent.